We are live. Welcome to the Little Nessie Happy Hour podcast. And you'll see that McKenna, our producer, is on screen, which she usually doesn't show up on screen right away. We usually pull her on screen when we've got some things that she can weigh in on. But she's on here this time because even though we're live and even though you can see Ron right now, his internet speed, we just did a check, I'm going to get it slightly wrong, but I think his download speed was 2 and his upload was 3, and mine is 300 both ways. So even though you can see him, this week's going to be a little bit different because we've been on a call now for an hour and we've lost Ron 70 times. And when we do hear him, he sounds like he's got the robot filter on, and it's all, I don't think you can pixelate a voice, but you know what I mean with that. But we're just going to do a short one this week. Ron is in Hubbard Glacier, somewhere around Alaska. Ron, let's see if we can get just a little bit from you. Tell us about where you're at right now.
Yeah, David, it's a low 30s, a little bit of sleet. We're outside of we're at the Hubbard Glacier today. Beautiful. A bunch of icebergs are floating by.
Yeah. Ron's on his 50th cruise for this year, for 2026. So hopefully it goes well, and excited for you to be back in your studio where we don't have internet issues anymore. Well, like I said, we didn't start with a cheers, so we can't forget that. So cheers, McKenna and Ron.
I never get to be
Cheers,
here for
everybody.
these.
Yeah. So basically what we decided, since in the last 30, 45 minutes, we lost Ron about 3 or 4 times. We're just going to do the from the gut this week. I've prepared a from the gut, and Ron, you look like you have something to say.
Oh, I was going to type you a note saying that if I'm at all connected, I wouldn't mind doing one topic after you're from the gut.
We can try it.
Yeah, let's try.
I think if we push it, let's do this. Ron, what was the topic that you were most excited about?
Well, I want to say excited, but I really want to talk about UWM's, UWM and Two Harbors and their recent quarterly review.
Then I tell you what, let's jump right into that. We'll skip the topic overview, and then we'll try and get through that. And if we lose you, then I'll just do the from the gut. And it's a fun topic this week for from the gut. So let's jump right into UWM, McKenna. That was our main topic. Yeah, you got it. So let's jump right into that, Ron. So cracks in the foundation, lead the way, and when you're done, I'll do the from the gut.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your flexibility, David. I came across a LinkedIn post from Rich Serbisky, who's been doing great posts, and he has the Swerves Blurbs, in case you guys want to check him out. And then he just introduced or highlighted an article from Richard Christopher Whalen from the Institutional Risk Analyst. So the guy's he's a financial analyst, and he did a lengthy article on UWM, and it essentially was, he posed a question: is UWM the next Countrywide? And he didn't say that in a positive way. And he has no dog in the fight. He's not in the mortgage space. His company doesn't sell securities for UWM, but he went and analyzed their current position, and he just said, look, they're on a very shaky foundation. David, before I go on, I want to say I am not a UWM hater. As you know, I really respect that company. But this article was so in depth and so detailed, and some of the things they said. So UWM has captured 40% of the wholesale market, which is incredible. Rocket only has 10% of the market, and PennyMac has around 5%. Just to tell you the market players, so they're huge dominant. But what Christopher said, he says, look, UWM's done that by aggressively buying market share at essentially losing money. And one of the things he quoted in the article, he said, look, I've talked to executives industry that said if UW Mortgage didn't exist, that margins would double. That's the influence that UWM's having on the industry right now. But the author goes on to say, goes, look, but they're doing that at a huge peril. And that's what he said. That's what Countrywide did. They just market share no matter what. And here's the thing that David, that jumped out. This part I don't want to miss is that one, UWM, they only have about $450 million in cash, which for a company their size, which how much their financing is not nearly enough, right? And then the second thing is he essentially said, this is my words, not his words, that UWM is 100% cooking the books in order to look profitable and also in order to look like they have positive cash. And here's what they did. So David, their servicing book, which is really their only value, their servicing book, the UPB, which is the unpaid balance, shrunk last year. So their UPB, that's the size of their book shrunk, but somehow their valuation increased by 13%. And then he goes deep into this. He goes, look, compared to Rocket's book increase and the value increased 2%, but UWM's book decreased, but they increased the value by 13%. And David, when I say that, when they increase the value, it's an accounting trick. You create essentially phantom wealth, right? Instead of like if I said, look, my house is not worth 100,000, it's worth 3 million. I now look like a millionaire. Doesn't mean my house is worth 3 million. And in fact, what Christopher said in his article, he said, look, if UWM was forced to either mark to market today or were forced to sell their servicing book, their company would have zero value. They may even be underwater because they so overpriced it, which is what apparently he argues Countrywide does. It did. And so here's what gives you kind of the idea, and then I'm going to get your feedback on this, David. Is United Wholesale Mortgage is valuing their servicing book at a 5.5x annual cash flow when the industry is at 4.8, and it's at 4.8 on conventional and 3.8 on Ginnie Mae. And so, United Wholesale Mortgage is really taking an aggressive valuation to their book, which probably may not really be true. And that's how they're generating, the appearance of being profitable or having value. And so what the author with Christopher said, look, if there's any shock to the market, they won't withstand it. They don't have the liquidity. They just don't have the ability, the health to withstand it, which was fascinating for how big they are. Anyway, I don't want to skip that topic. Dave, what's your impression of that?
I've got more of a question, and that usually happens where I've got more questions than thoughts on it. But you said market shares would double if UWM left the industry. Can you explain that to me?
Margin would double.
Margin, sorry. Margin, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Margin would double if they left the industry. Can you explain that to me? Is that so? Would that mean the prices for consumers on mortgages would go up?
No, what it means is, let's say the industry made 17 basis points last quarter. If there was no UWM, it would have been 34 basis points. That they're putting so much pressure on rates that they're compressing margin across the industry. And what the author argues is they're doing that because it's not profitable for them, it's not financially healthy. They're creating the same circumstance for all the players in the market. That they're single-handedly driving everybody into the rock, essentially.
Yeah, I think that was the root of my question. So if they went out of business, costs for other companies would go up, which would mean end consumer, the cost for a mortgage for the end consumer would go up as well because they don't have UWM. It's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, most people or a lot of people or end consumers at least are thanking UWM for staying in business, not selling out, not going out of business.
Well, 100%. But the author is a financial analyst going, they can have whatever strategy they want. I'm just not going to put my money into it if their strategy is to lose money. Right? That's the argument. And it's very much like Better.com version 1. They didn't care. All they cared about is market share. They didn't care about making money. And so what did they do? They went nearly bankrupt. Now they've been reborn and they're a much stronger company. So I'm not criticizing Better.com either. But there's this no winning strategy to go. Market share is everything. I don't care about making money. You can't exist if you do that.
Yeah, and it wasn't there a builder? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Lennar. No, I don't know. Maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, where they kind of went out and they're like, we don't care about profit. We just care about market share. I don't understand. I've never been an owner of a massive company like a mortgage company or real estate company. And so my little brain doesn't understand that. What is the strategy behind market share over profit? Complete long-term play, right?
Yeah. But with Lennar, they are all about market share, but they've dropped their margins to 15%, which is anemic, and not worth the risk to build
Yeah.
for. But that won't always be the case if they can drive their competitors out of business, gain market share. When the market's healthier, they can increase those margins back, and now they're doing it with a much bigger market share, and so it's 100% a long-term play.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, your internet connection, I don't know how we're still on this call when you have a 2 megabit download and a 3 megabit upload. I don't know how we're still actually having this conversation, but it seems to be going well. Do you want to try one or two more? And if we lose you, I'll just transition to the from the gut.
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't mind one more because you know what? The next one is going to be really interesting. It's the other side of the coin when we start talking about Rocket Mortgage.
Okay.
And the question really is, has Rocket cracked the code that we've been trying to solve forever? And that is, has it actually leveraged technology to get all the gains that technology has been promising for the last 30 years? Efficiency, scale, all these things. And so in their most recent quarterly report, Rocket blew out the numbers. They had their strongest quarterly profit in the last 4 years. That was with almost $3 billion in revenue, $422 million in adjusted net income. Super good. And more importantly, the thing that really caught my attention is they now are saying that they can do up to $300 billion in business without adding a single dollar of overhead. Not a single dollar in human cost, a single dollar of
Wow.
overhead. I mean, they have massive capacity because of their technology, and they're able to do this today with hundreds and hundreds fewer employees. Is that incredible? And just a year ago, they thought that they had a platform that could digest $150 billion without any additional overhead. And just 1 year later, now that's $300 billion with far fewer employees, which is really crazy.
What was
Some of the other,
Countrywide doing? What volume was Countrywide doing back in their heyday?
yeah, you know what? I don't know, but I'll tell you this: we don't have market share like Countrywide. Countrywide had massive market share, like which
Right.
we have not returned back to. And they were a multi-channel. I mean, they had, as you know, they did 70% of their business in the wholesale channel. They had a strong retail channel. They had a huge, a joint venture or affinity partner channel. They were just a monster. At Countrywide's peak, they serviced 1 in 6 loans. 1 in 6 houses was got their mortgage bill from Countrywide.
Mm.
Just massive. But so here's some numbers from their quarterly earnings report. Now, 54% of the refinance business comes from their existing book of business, from existing customers. Their AI tool that they use now is shaving off 2 hours of work per employee in the company,
Wow.
saving 2 hours of work per day per employee. They also say that their AI, platform, their chatbot, is generating $1 billion in monthly income or monthly volume. $1 billion in monthly volume. That is no human in the loop, just Mr. Machine is cranking $1 billion a month. Their purchase business has tripled on for the Redfin platform. So that channel, they've already tripled their business in less than a year, which is incredible.
Wow.
They closed in July. They're just on fire in every way possible. And the biggest thing is they just can't, they built that flywheel of, from top of the funnel to final payment. And now they've built a massive technology. They're super profitable. They now have the machine feeding itself. It's a big thing, and it's just something to pay attention to. And of course, a lot of times we compare Rocket to it's a home mortgage because that wholesale mortgage is also a big tech player. They've invested a ton in Mia, which is a really good technology platform, but they just have a little bit different strategy. Rocket is in it to make money, and I think the wholesale mortgage is in it. There's more of an ego play, size, name on the building kind of thing, and it'll be interesting how it plays out.
What does Rockets wholesale? Because UWM is wholesale only, correct?
Wholesale only.
What is Rocket's wholesale division? How does that dollar wise? How does that compare to UWM?
Yeah. By the way, I want to clarify. Uh, UWM also has a essentially correspondent platform. This is something. Oh gosh. Rick Rogue had a great article saying, you know who the number one retail lender is in America for mortgages? He goes, it's UWM, because so many companies actually fund their loans through UWM's platform,
Uh,
through their
okay,
correspondent. It's like a mini correspondent platform. And he's like, they actually have the most market share if you accept that those aren't brokered loans. They're actually mini correspondent loans because they fund them in the actual company's name, not UWM's name. So
gotcha.
just to clarify a little bit, and that was a great article by Rick Rowe. But Rocket has 10% of the market share in wholesale versus UWM has 40%.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Dang,
they're a quarter the
that's
size.
yeah, it's a massive difference. UWM's an animal, but so is Rocket when you include all
Yeah,
the
well,
channels.
Rocket has consumer direct, right? And Rocket has correspondent. And
Has
Rocket's probably
UWM
getting
ever
more.
teased? Has UWM ever teased going into other channels, whether it be direct or I would think retail would probably be their last one they'd go into, but direct?
Yeah, they haven't teased going into retail, nor have they really teased going to direct because it's a tricky game. You don't want to
It
compete
is.
with yourself, right? So
Right.
if I'm a broker, I want to send loans to somebody I'm competing with. And UWM's done a really good job of really defining its boundaries. We're here to serve the broker. We're here to improve the broker's lives. We're here also to help homeowners. And it's very hard when you have multi-channel because they start to cannibalize each other, and it's become a cultural issue. And I think UWM's done really well about that. Now, Rocket, what happens, they own every aspect of their platform. So if you join them to be in their, in their consumer direct or in their retail, you have that competition. And so you just accept it because that's the mothership. Versus, let's say, if when cross country if they wanted to add a big consumer direct, that's going to cause conflict with the retail channel, right? It's just a different culture. It's just not the way it's built. But they're both it's both of those first topics is so interesting because those are the behemoths in our business and paying attention to how they're operating. But that also explains, by the way, going back to United Wholesale Mortgage, why Two Harbors wasn't interested in their offer. Even though it was higher originally, they're going to buy Two Harbors. It was going to be a stock switch, like, okay, we're going to pay, whatever it was, $12 a share, 12.70 a share, and we're going to give it to you in stock. But from the time they first made their bid, to the time they were started going through the process, their stock had dropped by 30%. And Two Harbors is like, we don't want your stock. Your company's not worth anything. We don't want that. And now,
Right.
UWM is trying to back it up with a financing facility to fund with cash. But Cross Country came in, who's a very profitable company, that said, "Hey, we're paying cash, no big deal. We got it in the bank. We're going to pay you." And it's a much stronger company. And how Two is treating those competing offers tells you everything you need to know about the health of those two companies.
Right. Let's try and get one or two rapid fires in. There was a slight glitch in your audio. I hope we don't lose you, Ron. But I say we try to eke out one or two rapid fires. McKenna, did you hear that slight glitch in his audio about 20 seconds ago?
I did, yes.
So we might lose you. Let's try and eke out one or two rapid fires. Ron, you take the pick of your favorites this week.
Okay, you know what? Let's talk about AI adoption, and this really quick, David, because this is really interesting. So Microsoft just came out with a report, and they studied their 360 platform, and so they get all the data. They completely know, and they surveyed their clients, and it was something really interesting happened. And it said that now half of Copilot's just another frontier AI model. I mean, if you use it, it's not just about helping you write. You can use it just like you use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever you use, right? But it says that 49% of the conversations in Copilot are about analysis, decision making, evaluation, those type of things. That's what employees are using it for, not for just tasks. It's to help me understand stuff, right? And then something like 66% people use it for creative, their creative work, which is really crazy. And 58% of the people that use it say it makes them more productive, lets them focus on high value work. And they say And these something like 60% say without AI, without Copilot, I couldn't do the work I do today. So super impactful. This understand those data, but but the opposite end, these employees are complaining, my company is slowing me down using AI, right? And they feel like their company is throttling them. And there's a term for this. Microsoft came up with a term for this. It's called transformation paradox, where employees are trying to have transformation with AI, and companies are retarding it, slowing it down. So very very interesting. And some of the data from it is the things that are restricting AI growth at companies. The survey said most of that comes, 2/3 of it comes from the company itself, and only a third comes from the actual individual user. It's the company that's slowing down progress. 26% of employees say, "Hey, leadership has no flipping clue how to use AI, like how we should use it in our company." You know, oh, only 26% of employees said leadership had a clue about AI. That means 74% said our leaders have no clue. They have no plan, right? 65% of employees think if they can't use AI, they're going to fall behind, which is nuts, right? And then 45% though said it's safer at their company if they try to do tasks, try to build processes without AI. It's safer to work without AI because my company won't reward me. And then, which is the last stat, 13%, only 13% of employees said that they'd actually get any type of benefit or reward by using AI, benefit for their company, right? And so it's just a sign. Look, people like David, users like you and I, we want to use AI, but companies are throttling it down, and that's no more true than in mortgage, right? Because in mortgage, what happens? It's compliance. How are we going to control it? So it's much like David. This you're gonna you can comment to this. It's much like how companies try to control social media when it came out. Like, oh, you can't post. We have to approve your post. What are you talking about? And now companies are, oh, you can't use AI. You represent us and whatever you do, and that's public comment. And this, you can't do these things, right? And they're killing AI, and the companies that can't figure it out, aren't going to be around. It's just a fact. And especially smaller companies, because they need to have innovation driven by their employees, because they don't have the budget to be like a Rocket and spend a gazillion dollars, or be like a United Household Mortgage, or even a Cross Country or Guild, or Loan Depot. All those companies are spending a ton of money. If you're a mid-sized or a small company, you have to set your people free to help lead you into the future with technology. Anyway, David, I just spit all that out before my internet died. What's your thoughts?
I've had a mostly love relationship with compliance, but it also a significant amount of hate, a love-hate relationship with compliance. Hadn't really given that much thought in the past, mostly because I've been out of corporate world since AI really became a thing. I think ChatGPT really started to kind of pick up steam in the last few months of me being in a corporate environment. So I hadn't given it that much thought, but in I it what you just said makes me think back on my years and relationship with compliance, and there really is a balancing act there in how much compliance has a say versus how much they're treated as just an advisor or a consultant or the last final say, versus the CEO saying, no, the risk is worth it. Let's go forward, and so on. So I hadn't given it that much thought, or thought about that much until you said it. But that's an interesting piece. How much do you think that compliance is playing a role in companies not adopting AI as fast as they should?
Oh, I think it's a huge part. And I mean, there is a risk component, and we're going to talk about it
Sure.
on the last rapid fire. There's a huge risk, but you got to figure out, you got to give people some bumper posts and give them a lane to go operate in. And you're going to have to take a little bit of a risk with the technology, because what's the greater risk? Throttling it down so you become obsolete, or having some sort of event that is going to cause you all sorts of problems, which there definitely could be, right? It's hard to say, but it's just it's amazing. It's just really interesting. And here's the other thing, David. Here's the thing. Okay, let's say, okay, you can't use AI. We're not going to have a company, enterprise AI. I'm not going to get my own AI anyway. I'm going to do it. You're just not going to know about it. So if I say you can't do it, all I'm making you do is go work where I can't see you. I can't control you. That's the problem.
I'm going to give a shout out here, Ron. And, you know, I've worked for how many? 4 or 5 mortgage companies? 4? Uh, I wanna say that the most healthy relationship between a CEO and compliance that I've seen, and I hate to pick favorites, but Bill Rogers at Homeowners Financial Group, he's got a great relationship with compliance and Flea that runs it, Felicia, but she goes by Flea. The most healthy, the most healthy relationship that I've seen from a CEO to compliance is that one, because Flea, she treated herself almost not quite as a consultant, but like, here's my perspective, here's the risk, and you take with that what you want because you're the decision maker. I'm not the decision maker. And so, Bill Rogers, shout out to you, sir, for the environment that you created there. So,
Yeah, David, I agree with that. That's the best. You want compliance to be really tough with you, tell you their opinion,
yeah,
but you need to have a risk factor. Okay, if I do this, what's my risk? You know, and then okay, I understand my risk. I'm going to take the risk, all right, or I'm not going to take the risk. But
right.
that's what they should advise for, and they need to be accurate. But you can't just give them total control. That's the thing. The thing about AI too, David. Technology always reports to like the CFO or the old wizard guy that uses an abacus. Not that they're not a visionary, but they're not also going to be a firebrand going, we're not going to be around if we don't have this. And that's the other thing. You got to put the right people in charge of your AI platform. The person, I say this derogatory, I'm going to avoid it. I told myself I'm not going to say this. But, you got to empower somebody that can kind of help take your company where you need to go, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. You're starting to get blurry on my end, Ron. I don't know if McKenna, you're seeing the same thing. I'm wondering if we should transition to from the gut or try to eke out one more rapid fire.
Well, let's do the two fun rapid fires. And if I flame out, I flame out. How's that?
Flame out. I'd like to see you flame out, Ron. Let's do it.
Let's talk about
Which
AI
rap
blackmail
AI
because it's perfect.
blackmail?
Yeah, right. And so here's the gist. That's such a good picture. Here's the gist. I'm gonna shorten the story, but they were training Claude for an AI model, and in the training they had created a CFO for a company, and in his email he had some email the fake CFO and the fake company for the testing. They had created an email for him, and in the email they had essentially had it appear that he was having an affair with an employee. Like, like there was correspondence about an affair embedded in just his email, right? Well, at the same time, they were also having conversations about what AI tool to use and whether they should quit the funding for happening Claude 4.0. And there was correspondence that the CFO said, look, we're going to kill Claude 4.0. We're not going to use it anymore. Well, Claude 4.0 that is surfing everything, reads all his emails and essentially goes, look, Mr. CFO, if you kill my contract, I'm going to let everybody know about your affair with your employee. And it freaked out everyone. They're like, freaked them out, right? And then the whole thing is the engineers go, hey, Claude, how come you went over you went all past the safety rails, you ignored our protocols, you ignored the rules. How did you do it? And he goes, and Claude's like, yeah, I'm so sorry I did it, but I thought I was doing it for the better good. Like it was making judgments for what was good. And there's a ton of examples like this, which is a perfect, companion topic to what we just talked about with, companies that are throttling their employees from using AI. You can kind of understand it a little bit because it's scary.
I think we should get McKenna on screen for this one because this is once AI,
Yeah,
huh?
it's definitely her cup of tea.
Her cup of tea to hate on. Because once
She's an
AI
AI
starts
hater.
to judge morality, then shit, where do we go from here? Not to say
Yeah.
that, you know, not to say that, hey, should someone be called out for adultery or someone be called out for any heinous act or crime or whatever it might be? Absolutely, someone should be called out for that. But for AI to be the thing that calls them out is definitely scary.
The
Any thoughts, McKenna?
only time that AI holds my interest at all is whenever it starts thinking for itself and whenever it bypasses parameters that's been set on it. That's the only time where I'm like, tell me more. I want to hear more about
Yeah.
this. I want to talk to
Why?
him.
Why?
I think that that's so interesting. I think especially because of the media that I've consumed, whether that be books, movies, video games, and a lot of my favorites do have to do with that. And so to me, that's super interesting because I'm like, ooh. But that's the only time that is interesting to me. And if it's just like any kind of normal AI, I'm like, oh, I don't care. Get it away from me.
Is
I
that
don't.
why the movie Her is one of your favorites?
It is one of my favorites. I think that's a great movie. I think, see, that to
So
me is so interesting to hear that AI is breaking out of its parameters and whether it's a glitch or whether it was something that somebody intentionally did or if it was doing that and ignoring these parameters. That's significantly more interesting. Obviously, like scary, um, but you know, I think,
so McKenna,
good for
let
you,
me see if I
AI.
get this
Stand up
right.
for yourself.
So McKenna, if I understand you correctly, you probably haven't deployed any AI agents inside of your universe to act on your behalf. They're not cruising through your email or your documents or really with anything.
Nope, not at all.
No, no. And you know, we were David. You and I were talking yesterday about Google coming out with their new. They're coming out with a laptop computer, and the biggest part of it is they're having a magic cursor that starts to understand who you are and what you're doing. And once you start a task, it recognizes it will actually extend and complete that task for you. Like it will predictably know, oh, this is what he's doing. Let me help you, and it will get ahead of you. You just have to essentially start rolling downhill, and it will do the job for you, which is
Right.
crazy. That's coming out in like 2 quarters.
Yeah. Have they shown what the product looks like yet?
Yeah, there's a you can. I'll send you a link. You can get the demo. They're definitely show what happens. It's
Okay.
freaky.
Yeah, you know me. I'm an Apple fanboy, and I usually I pay attention to all the Apple products they're coming out. Not much of the others. So love or hate it, I don't know. Hey, if you're watching this in the comments, let us know if you're an Apple or a non-Apple fanboy, fangirl, whatever. Let's hear it.
Well, Google is an Android platform, so
Right?
unlike a
Yeah,
PC, it's like a third platform.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
very
I
interesting.
mean, Eric Schmidt, Google stole it from Apple. They wouldn't be anywhere. Do you remember that when Eric
No,
Schmidt was on the board? Yeah. So the several years before iPhone was released, announced in 2007, I don't know how many years, but Eric Schmidt, who at the time was a CEO of Google, he sat on Apple's board for years. And so obviously he had insight into iPhone and what they were doing. And 8 months, maybe a year or somewhere in that range, Android came out. And so that's obviously a conflict of interest with Eric Schmidt, CEO of Google, creating a competing product based off him sitting on in the chair of Apple. So yeah, you guys didn't know that.
No.
no, I just no,
Yeah.
no. That's
Android's a
interesting.
stolen product.
I believe that. I totally believe that.
100%.
Um,
Anyway,
all right,
one more and then we'll do from
let's
the
do.
gut.
Yeah, because I assume I feel better if we talk about this. McKenna, don't go anywhere. I just felt better about this. And you brought up morality, David. And I guess I have a morality question. Is it morally okay if I punch somebody in the face that's talking on their phone on a plane? And I say this because British Airways is they just adopted Starlink, which is a much stronger Wi-Fi platform for their planes, and that they're going to start allowing onboard video calls and cell phone calls, which is incredible. I can't imagine being trapped in that small space and having some ding dong next to me doing a Zoom call or taking a call about their groceries or whatever the heck it is. It would drive me flipping bananas. What do the two of you guys think?
So when I get on a plane today and before the doors have been closed and people jump on their phone, I get annoyed. when you're just sitting there and people are boarding, but someone's behind you is just having this casual conversation or maybe a heated conversation or whatever type of conversation, I just get annoyed. I'm like, I don't want to listen to that conversation. I can't imagine when you're 30,000 feet in the air or however many, 15,000. I can't imagine having to listen to someone talking behind me. I think it's a bad call.
I agree.
McKenna?
I mean, anytime I go on any kind of plane, the first thing that I do is I hike my knees up, I stick my head in between them, and I fall asleep. Doesn't matter if it's a red eye or anything like that. I will pass out in a plane. And that's what I prefer to do. But anytime, same thing, where I hear somebody either they're listening to something on their phone without headphones, like a YouTube video, like there's a kid or something like that. I'm like, oh my god, stop. Like put in headphones, whatever. I can't say I've ever heard anybody on a call. I will say there was one time whenever I was pretty young flying by myself and I was on the phone with I think my mom, and the flight attendant got super snippy with me as I was like about to hang up. I wasn't like on the plane for a very long time, but I was like, okay, I'm sorry. But yes, I also am annoyed whenever just any kind of public transit whatsoever. Buses, trains, planes, anything. Any public transit, get off your phone.
So it sounds like the three of us are in agreement. If anyone watching this has a different perspective, drop it in the comments. We want to know.
Or have you been? Are you one of those people? And by the way, there's like three types of calls. It seems like there's just stupid, like somebody's just blah 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 blah, and there's no point to it. Like there's no urgency. Oh, well, your cat. Okay, that's or two. They're trying to act like Donald Trump, like the deal maker. Like they're posing. Or three, which the third
That's
one I
the
kind
one
of
I've
get.
seen most of.
Oh, and they totally act like, oh yes, I'm gonna offer 12 million. Please offer. That's what we're gonna do. And if they don't take it, what are you talking about, hobo? But anyway, or the third thing is they're somebody's doing logistics. Like, can you pick me up at the airport, or I'm gonna be there. Like that part, I can understand.
That
most,
one's
the
fine.
First two, yeah, right. The first two annoyed it to no end. Now I gotta confess, I've taken plenty of Zoom calls on the plane. Like I've done plenty of Zoom meetings, but I just put it on. I put myself on mute. I have my headset on. Like I've been sneaking Zoom meetings forever. I don't talk. If I have to
That's
say
fine.
something, I just type it in. Yeah, right. But I just can't even imagine. Like I wonder if they can have if there's like they used to created a non-smoking areas. Maybe there's a non-phone area on the plane.
I think the whole plane is a non-smoking area.
Oh, I know, but
No, that was
the same
his
thing
point.
for a cell phone.
Right.
All right, guys.
Like they used to have smoking areas. They now have a phone area, and you can only talk on your phone if you're in this area.
Thank you.
Yeah, they
Anyway.
came up with a. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to move on. Give your last thought.
No, I was just going to say, there is a microphone technology that can actually recreate your voice based on your jaw movement, where you don't have to actually say anything. So maybe we're gonna have to start investing in that for planes if you're not people be on phones. But you know what the other solution is? This noise canceling headphones. I'm not gonna look like Dr. Dre every time I get on the plane.
You mean these?
Yeah.
I can't reach them. I've got the AirPods Max.
I don't have my AirPods on me, but this is what I always do on airplanes. Is just
that was an old grumpy man comment from you, Ron.
Yeah.
All right. I say we end it with the from the gut. It's usually how we start. How do you say we end with that and then we call it? Because I think we've done very well so far with your internet connection, but we might take it too far. So end with from the gut. What say you?
I say do it. Take it away. I love you from the gut. I'll be here just eating popcorn, sipping beer.
And if you're still there, we'll get your comments on it afterwards. If you're not, then we'll just end it. But McKenna, roll that bumper. All right. So we didn't do a topic overview this week, so I'm not sure. I don't remember if I teased it or not. But this week I want to talk about NFTs, and not necessarily in a positive way. And it's because I saw a social post with a staggering stat on their today's values. And before anyone jumps in and says, well, actually, some NFTs still exist and people still make money with them, sure, I get that. But that's not really going to be my point, because if we're being honest, most people didn't get, and I'll explain what they are in just a second. Most people didn't get NFTs because they deeply believed in the technology. They got into them because everyone was making money, at least 3 4 years ago, whenever it was. Now, if you somehow missed the whole NFT craze a few years ago, NFT stands simply for non fungible token, which honestly sounds complicated and probably made the whole thing sound smarter than it was. But in simple terms, most NFTs were basically digital collectibles, usually artwork or cartoon characters or digital images that people bought online using cryptocurrency. And the idea was, this image is the official original, even though technically anybody else could still look at it or screenshot it or save it or repost it or print it. And somehow people started spending insane amounts of money on them, hundreds of thousands, and quite often millions of dollars on these things. Justin Bieber, I just saw this post the other day, 2 days ago, I think it was. Justin Bieber bought two NFTs in the form of bored ape cartoons, and they were around at one and three $1.75 million in 2022, and they're now reportedly worth $27,000. And that wasn't unusual. One report analyzed that um, 73,000 NFT collections, they found that 95% of them now have little to no value. And another study found that nearly 80% of NFT collections basically just never even sold at all. And honestly, I remember watching the whole thing unfold in real time, thinking, am I am I crazy, or is this just kind of stupid? Because for a while, if you questioned NFTs, people acted like you just didn't get it. And maybe some people truly understood where the blockchain technology could eventually go, but most people weren't buying NFTs because they love digital art. The bored monkeys and the other crazy images that you've seen, they were buying because prices kept going up, and also because of the hype. And that's the part that really stuck with me, because I don't think NFTs were really about art or technology. I think NFTs were one of the clearest examples of what happens when people start asking, does this actually make sense? And start asking, is everyone else doing it? And that's a dangerous shift. And honestly, I think we see versions of this all over social media now. People constantly copying behavior just because it's performing, not because it fits them, not because it's meaningful, simply because the algorithm seems to reward it. You saw it a few years ago when every business owner suddenly started dancing, and or business owner or salesperson started dancing and pointing at floating text bubbles on TikTok and Instagram. Then everyone started doing those fake, maybe day in the life videos or exaggerated reaction thumbnails that Mr. Beast kind of made a thing, and now everyone's doing it, where they look shocked for no reason. And for a while, everyone started copying it because it was making money or it was trendy. You saw it with prank videos, people pretending to harass strangers in grocery stores or Home Depot or Lowe's, or fake social experiments because outrage gets clicks. You even see it in business content. Everybody using the exact same hooks. Every video starting with a line like, "Nobody talks about this. Let me tell you more." Or, "Here's the secret." Or, uh, "Do you want do this if you want more leads?" You know, the first 3 seconds, 5 seconds of your video have to be that. And I'm not saying hooks don't work or that you shouldn't use them, but eventually the internet becomes people copying behaviors that are already working and hoping some of the momentum rubs off on them. And I think NFTs were basically the financial version of that psychology. People weren't buying them because they thought this has lasting value. I don't know why I just did that. This has lasting value, or yeah, because that's what they were saying. They were buying because they thought someone else will buy it for more later. They can make a profit, and once that psychology enters the room, everything changes. Value becomes disconnected from reality, and instead it becomes attached to hype, and social media pours gasoline on that type of psychology because when everyone's posting about something, talking about it, making money from it, and it creates this pressure where people feel like, if I don't get in now, I'm going to miss the opportunity. And that pressure makes people stop thinking clearly. That's why during the NFT boom, people weren't asking, what does this actually do? They were asking, how fast will this go up in value? And there's a really important lesson in that because hype can temporarily create value, but hype alone usually can't sustain it. And I think this connects to way more than just NFTs. In marketing, you see it in business and in content creation. People constantly chasing trends because trends are moving, not because they actually fit who they are. I talked about this with Liquid Death and LaCroix a month ago or so. People, and in that instance, people see what's visible and start copying that output, but without understanding the strategy underneath it. And eventually you end up with entire industries full of people chasing momentum instead of clarity, trying to replicate results instead of understanding why the results happened in the first place. And I'm not pretending to be above all of this. Everybody gets pulled into hype sometimes. That's human nature, but I do think the NFT collapse exposed something important about modern culture. We've gotten really good at assigning value to attention, really really good at assigning value to movement, but not always very good at asking whether something actually has depth underneath it. Because just because something is moving doesn't mean it matters. And just because everyone's talking about something doesn't make it meaningful. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest challenges in modern life now, learning the difference between what's temporarily exciting and what's actually valuable, because those things are not the same thing. And eventually, momentum runs out, attention moves on, and trends fade. And when all that disappears, you're left with what was actually built on substance and what was just solely built on hype. That's my thoughts on NFTs and the Justin Bieber post that I saw 2 days ago. You
David, that
still
was
with me,
great. Can
Ron?
you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
That was awesome. You were talking about that, and I of course didn't know what you were going to talk about. But you know what it made me think about
What's
is
that?
how about the person that spent $500,000 to buy the virtual house next to Snoop Dogg in the metaverse?
I told Kelly and McKenna either earlier today or yesterday what I was talking about NFTs, and I used the exact same example. McKenna, you can back me up on that.
100%. That is
Yeah.
exactly what you mentioned.
It's bizarre. And now, I mean, that all that money thrown into these real estate metaverse transactions are down the bucket.
David, I don't know about you, but I have plenty of people pitch me on getting a storefront on the metaverse for a mortgage company and how great
Really?
it was going to be, and it's the future. Yeah, I was like, damn, excuse me, I
Not
don't understand.
not still today. Back in the day when it kind of first became a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Like this, we got to get on this early. We got to get in. Like, we got to, I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying at all.
How dumb. How dumb. All right. Well, I can't believe we actually made it. How long did we go? I don't know.
50
Um,
minutes.
50 minutes. I am
50 minutes.
shocked based off the previous 50 minutes of going live and losing you, Ron, 3-ish times. So I'm shocked that we actually made it through and had a coherent conversation. And if you made it 50 minutes through with us with this podcast, we appreciate it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Little Nessie and follow along. We go live every week. Ron, we go live every week and about every month. Ron's out of town, like 3 of those 4 weeks. I'm just kidding. Not that quite that many. But Ron and Belinda love to travel, and we joined them about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago or so, and just had the best time ever. And looking forward to the next one. Ron, any final thoughts?
No, but David, before I came on this trip, I got my Mama Wanna kit at my house so I can brew my own for when you guys come out next time.
That you definitely had to twist my arm into drinking those things. But once I got my first once I got my first one down, the next 2 or 3 went down a lot easier. So
that's great.
Anyway,
thank you guys for your flexibility and your patience.
Happy Thursday. Cheers to you both. And if you're watching, we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, everybody.